Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar that's titled Harnessing Microsoft 365 Copilot to Transform Work. We've also got Angela with us this morning, who's our Microsoft Copilot specialist, who will deliver the webinar. We're going to cover some exciting stuff. We've got an introduction to AI. We've then got a deep dive into Microsoft 365 Copilot itself. We've got a real-time demonstration, so you can see Copilot in action for those of you that haven't seen it. We've then got a discussion around empowering workflows and intelligent agents, followed by the adoption and its best practices, and then what's next. We'll take Q&A at the end, so please pop your questions into the Q&A section and we'll get through as many as we can at the end. If we don't manage to get to you, feel free to reach out separately. We will follow up with an email with the links and the ability for you to respond to it and have any questions that you want to pose to us. With that said, I'm going to hand over to Angela and she'll take us through the webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Keith. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So I've got the pleasure of talking to you all around Copilot today. So Keith has done a good job in terms of covering the agenda, so I won't repeat what he's mentioned. So we'll get straight into an overview before I jump into the demos. So it took 2 months to reach 100 million users for ChatGPT. And as you can see, it's taking less and less time to adopt technology. As you can see, 16 years for mobile phones, 7 years for the internet. And obviously we use the internet today, but yeah, it still took that long to reach that many users. And now 2 months for ChatGPT. So we just want to show you that generative AI is not going away. Technology is evolving fast, and we don't want any organizations to feel like they're being left behind in operational efficiencies. And then maybe you're coming to Digital Origin after a year or two, and it would have evolved a lot more further down the line, which means it's going to take a lot longer to adopt. Now, in Copilot's perspective, Copilot's been established for 2 years, and there were 300 updates alone last year. When I say updates, these are new things that you can do within Teams, Excel, PowerPoint that Copilot necessarily couldn't do before. And the demos that I'm going to demonstrate today doesn't necessarily mean that's all it can do. It can do so much more, and it will be able to do so much more in 2026 as well. So just it is almost like a behavioral change and something that you would need to adapt with in order to carry on with your operational efficiency. So it's constantly evolving, the quality is getting better, etc. This is really important. 85% of people are already using AI at work. 80% of them bring their own AI tool to work. So most likely your employees are using AI for work purposes that may or may not be posing risk to the business, especially if they're using like a consumer solution, like the free version of ChatGPT, for example. So this is one of the reasons why we're doing the webinar today, to show you a secure way of working when you're using an AI tool. So I am going to differentiate the differences between something like ChatGPT and Copilot as I go along, but really, really important figure. It's also a good thing because if you were looking to adopt Copilot in the near future, it won't be so much of a behavioral change to start using it, because a majority of employees are already using AI or have already used it, which means they're just using something like Copilot, which is more secure to use, but they're already used to prompting, instructing an AI tool. So as I mentioned, it won't be much of a behavioral change. Okay, so food for thought. I want you to think about, where do you see improvements in your organization? So would it be to improve the quality of people's work, maybe get rid of that human error, or in finance or HR, for example? Would it be to speed up certain business processes? Where do you spend most of your repetitive tasks? And would you say those repetitive tasks are part of your skill set, or do you want to focus more on your priority work and you can't? And that's when we can start thinking about automation. And then effort would be, maybe you just want to give employees a better employee experience in order to retain them, for example. And the reason why I'm telling you to think about it in this way is because it's going to make a lot more sense as to how is Copilot going to support me in the areas that I want to improve, rather than just wanting to understand what Copilot does. Okay, so as I mentioned, it is food for thought because I am jumping into Copilot now. So Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant that is integrated within your Microsoft applications. So when you open up your Teams, your PowerPoint, Outlook, etc., your Office applications, you have Copilot within those applications. So you don't actually need to go over a browser in order to communicate with it. It's literally right there by your side. I'm going to break it down a little bit further because maybe some people on this webinar today have used an AI tool in the past and you might be thinking, well, what's the difference? So let me break it down. If you focus on the top left hand side, let's say we open up an application. Let's say we open up our Microsoft Word. When you open up your Microsoft Word, you obviously get a ribbon at the top of different types of features. So bullet points, changing the font, format, etc. You also get your Copilot button. Click onto it, ask it a question. For example, Copilot, can you draft me a business proposal based on Project X? Okay, now that is classed as a prompt. So you are instructing Copilot, okay? And that prompt is then sent to the Microsoft Graph on the bottom left-hand side. Now, your Microsoft Graph is your internal data. So anything that you have access to, Copilot also has access to. So when I say internal data, this is files and documents that are stored in SharePoint, your OneDrive, your emails, and your Teams messages, okay? That's your Microsoft Graph. Let's say, for example, you wanted 10 Copilot licenses. It doesn't mean those 10 users will all be able to then have access to financial data because they have Copilot. If they never had access to financial data before having Copilot, they still don't have access to it because it respects your permission level and it doesn't go beyond that. Okay, so that's really important to note. You can also do your internet searches. So you don't actually have to go over a browser to do your internet searches. You can stay within your Word and ask questions, toggle on web browsing, and it will pull information from over the web as well. Okay, so you can keep it toggled on or off. Let's say Copilot has picked up some PDFs, some Word documents. It's then sent to the large language model on the right-hand side. Now, just consider the large language model as the brain of Copilot. It's trying to reason, what did you just instruct it to do? So I asked it to draft me a business proposal. It's going to try and figure out, have I been collaborating with somebody on this project? Are there previous projects that are similar to what I'm proposing at the moment in order to give me a richer response? And so rather than, a PA just dumping 100 pages at your desk and then walking away, the large language model will basically collate that information together to give you an informed response in its own words back to your application. So we're going back to our Microsoft Word. It will tell you what is found in its own words, but it doesn't stop there because you never want to second guess where Copilot has got that information from, and Copilot will citate, so reference all of those sources, so the PDFs and the Word documents, maybe a site that is pulled in order for you to verify its conclusion. Okay, so that's how it works in the background. The apps, the graph, the large language model all works together simultaneously. Now let's talk about ChatGPT. The free version of ChatGPT, I know, is easily accessible. People might be using it maybe just to draft an email or summarize a document. But anything that you input into something like that is, so when I say input, is your prompts and your data that you've pasted into it or uploaded, it's saved into public data. So you're basically training the underlying large language model, which means you might be posing risks to the business because eventually if you ask the right questions, somebody else will be able to access that information as well. Which is why we don't recommend using something like that, like the free version of ChatGPT for business purposes. Now, Copilot doesn't do that. You can confidently ask Copilot questions like financial information, client information, just anything that you deem as sensitive within the business. And Copilot is not trained on your data or your prompts, so you can be reassured that that data and prompts is not going to be shared with a colleague, let alone leaked outside of the organization. So it has enterprise data protection. Okay, so yeah, a secure way of working using an AI tool like Copilot. Okay, so we've been sitting on this slide for a little while, so hopefully that hasn't gone over your heads and it's broken it down as to how it actually works and the security behind it as well. So let's move on to the demos as to how does that actually work within applications. So I'm going to build up on my applications. Let's talk about Outlook first. So Alex and Megan have both been discussing opening up a new store in London, and they've been going back and forth on emails. Okay, so they've been talking about tasks, ownerships, budgets, etc. And we've all been there when we've been CC'd in a chain of emails on a Friday afternoon, and we need to scroll through and figure out what's going on. Now, with Copilot, you don't need to do that. There is something called Summary by Copilot. Click onto it, and it will summarize that chain for you. You don't have to just do it on a chain. It could be any email, and it will give you that summary. Now, Megan is going to reply back and click on Draft with Copilot. And she's typing in, Copilot, can you draft me an email to accept my tasks in the inventory? Now, she's not even mentioning what the tasks are, but that's because she doesn't need to, okay? So because she's clicked reply, Copilot is going to do the heavy lifting for her. So it's going to figure out what she needs to do based on that chain of emails. So she can be vague if she wants to be. You can change the tone. You can change the length to short, long, medium, etc. If you don't particularly like the recipient, you can click on long, but I'm not encouraging you to. Obviously, this is just to keep it a bit lighthearted. We've got a lot of demos to get through. Now, as you can see in a second, Copilot is going to create me an email, and it's also bullet pointed the tasks in the inventory. So Alex is fully aware what he doesn't need to do. You can regenerate it if you're not happy with it, or you can tweak it. So I'm typing in, if anybody's caught what I typed in make it into a poem. You don't have to type that in. You could type in, make it shorter, make it more professional, add this additional point. Again, this is just to keep it lighthearted. I promise you not all my demos are like this, but as you can see, it has transformed an email into a poem, and you can always toggle back if you want to see the original email. Now, I've showed you how you can get Copilot to draft you an email, but Copilot is not going to initially sound like you because it doesn't really understand you as a user yet, and you can speed up that process. So within your Outlook settings, there is a Copilot section, and you can tell Copilot how you sound on email. So you can say, Copilot, this is my tone of voice. I like to greet people saying hi. I like to close emails saying best regards. You can add a lot more information than I have. You could say my emails need to be less than 200 words. So when you're asking Copilot to draft you an email, let's say I'm emailing Bailey and I want to talk about Copilot training, it's going to follow those pre-instructions. So you don't need to perfect your prompt. You just need to mention it in your pre-instructions, okay? So you could even say, every time this question is asked via email, this is how I like to respond back. So when you ask Copilot to draft you an email, and you could just say, respond back with answers for X, it's going to follow those custom instructions, okay? So you can make Copilot sound more like you. Let's talk about, what if you prefer just writing your own emails? What can Copilot do? So I'm going to write my own email. I'm going to say, hi, Emma, thanks for our previous meeting. Let's have another meeting on Friday. Let's discuss plans for a webinar. This time, I'm not going to click onto draft. I'm going to click onto coaching. Coaching looks at how are you going to respond to a recipient. You know, we've all had hard days, and maybe we're coming across a little bit blunt on our emails at times. Copilot will pick up on the tone of your voice. So I'll show you what mine comes back with. So it says, maintain positive enthusiasm. Rather than saying perhaps we can schedule, change it to I would love to. Change maybe we can do this Friday to I am available on Friday. Under reader sentiment, Copilot is saying encourage engagement. So ask a few more questions to gauge a little bit more interest around the webinar planning. If you have any spelling mistakes, it will be under clarity. So I don't have spelling mistakes, but Copilot has picked up that I wasn't specific enough. I only said I'm free on Friday. I didn't mention any times. So Copilot is saying, be more specific. You can click on apply all suggestions, and it will create you something like this with the suggestions. You could either replace your original email or just click on insert below, and it would insert it below your original email, and then you can just pick and choose the parts that you actually want to take on board, okay? So when it comes to writing emails, you can get Copilot to draft you an email and make it sound like you, or you can get Copilot to just analyze your existing email to help you better your writing style. Now, that's actually a real life scenario, because this is how I used to type. I used to say perhaps and maybe a lot on my emails. because I used to type like I'm just talking out loud at times, and Copilot picked up that I could possibly be more assertive on my emails, and that actually helped me because I'm now I am more assertive but still staying friendly, and I get my replies back a little bit more quickly than I used to, and I'm not more popular than I used to be last year, so it definitely did help me. But obviously there's a preference, okay? Coaching and draft. Let's talk about our inbox. We've all been there. We're probably there right now when we're trying to sift through our unread emails. How is Copilot going to help me with my unread emails? So I've got my unread emails. Let's just assume that they are from different people, not just myself. It's just for demo purposes. And I'm going to click onto chat on the top right hand side. It opens up a side panel like this. It gives you a couple of suggested prompts. It even gives you a microphone. If you want to speak to Copilot, you can, speech to text. Now I'm going to write my own prompt. I'm going to say, Copilot, can you have a look at my unread emails and categorize them in 3 groups? My demo is all around recruitment. So the groups that I want is to do with people asking me for new jobs, complaints that have come through, prospect clients that I need to onboard, because there is a way of instructing Copilot. If you only said, Copilot, can you summarize my unread emails? You're not going to get a response like this. You will get a response, but it will probably be, if you have 50 unread emails, you get 50 bullet points of those unread emails, and you won't find that very productive. Whereas if you take a little bit more time and explain to Copilot what is important to you, you'll see something a little bit more easy on the eye like this. So it separated them in those 3 groups that I wanted. It's highlighted time sensitive messages and even given me a priority order, things that I need to address ASAP and what's least priority. Okay, so Copilot can help you organize your inbox as well. There is going to be a new feature coming soon where you're going to be able to pin which recipients you see as priority. So when you want Copilot to summarize your unread emails, it's going to understand which ones you actually deem as priority as well. Okay, so that is your inbox. Let's talk about calendars. So I've opened up my calendar. Obviously, I have blocked my calendar because nobody wants to see my busy diary. But it does show on the right-hand side Copilot again. So if you click onto it, it looks similar to the previous demo, side panel. I will expand on it. And it's going to show you, I'm going to show you that I want some focus time, basically. And I've asked Copilot, can you tell me when I'm available for 30 minutes starting the 24th of November? And Copilot has looked into my calendar and has noticed that I'm available on the 26th of November. And you can either open up the Teams invite and choose the time, or just carry on a conversation with Copilot. I just said slot 1 is fine. It's saying, do you want me to arrange a meeting for you? Yes or no? I'm just going to say yes. I'm going to stop this now, but you can carry on the conversation. It will say, do you want to add an agenda, etc. But the meeting has been set by Copilot. So when I go back into my calendar, it's going to be there. And it's named it focus time. It's booked it in at the right time. And at the bottom, it's even said it's been booked in by Copilot. Just in case I forget, when did I book this in? Copilot booked it in for me. Okay, so it doesn't just have to be your own diary. It could be your colleagues as well. As long as you have access to when they're free and not free, Copilot does as well. So Copilot will be able to send a Teams invite to multiple people within the organization if you want to get Copilot to schedule you a meeting with you and your colleagues. Okay, so you no longer have to go through their busy schedules and get Copilot to see when you're all mutually available. So that's scheduling with Copilot. That's, as I mentioned, I'm going to be going through a lot of demos today, and I won't be able to show you everything that Copilot can do in every application, but I'm showing you all the main things that you can get started with if you're looking to adopt Copilot. So let's talk about Teams. So let's start off with Teams meetings. If you have a Teams meeting, Copilot, in order for Copilot to work, transcription needs to be turned on. Okay. Now I am catching up on a meeting. The meeting has already ended. I've gone onto my Teams chat. I've clicked onto the meeting that's been ended, and it has been recorded. But as I said, transcription is important. Recording is not so important. You don't have to have it on. It's just in my demo. It will show you colors at the bottom, who spoke when, and I'm going to focus on the Copilot section. So it will give you like a static summary of what was mentioned. But if you just want to dig a little bit deeper, just do what I'm doing. And I'm typing in what decisions were made during this meeting. So rather than catching up with a colleague, eating into their time, watching an hour-long recording and realizing there was only one point that was relevant for me, just get straight to the point with Copilot. And Copilot will come back saying they decided to delay their launch date for this project. Now, you will be able to hover over the citations, so it will tell you exactly who said what, again, to verify Copilot's conclusion. Now, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. I'm going to say, did they reach a group consensus? So did they all agree to delay this launch date? Now, I'm showing you this demo when a meeting has ended. Copilot works live during a meeting as well. You don't have to wait until a meeting ends. So I will touch on this in a second, but just bear in mind, it doesn't always have to be catching up, okay? So Copilot will come back saying they decided to delay their launch date by 2 weeks, again with a citation. Now, as I said, prompting is important. So I'm actually saying to Copilot, can you list to me the pros and cons for delaying the launch date and put it into a table? If you don't mention the format that you want it in, it might come back in a chunky paragraph, in a couple of bullet points. It might not be the presentation that you want. So just mention to Copilot what's the format that you prefer. And I wanted a table and that's what I've got. That's my preference, okay? And 9 times out of 10, we do have follow-ups and I want to know what they are. So I'm asking Copilot, can you list me the action items with the owners as well? Again, in a table format. Now, this is really good for task management because the amount of times you might talk about something on a Teams meeting, say you're going to follow up, and then you forget what you're going to follow up. There's no excuse to forget anymore because, as you can see, although the demo has ended, it actually shows you who needs to do what after the meeting ends. Okay, so task management. So that's when a meeting ends. Let's talk about booking in a meeting. I'm sure we all know how to book in a meeting. Set the title, add the people that you want, the time, the date, and then click onto the settings icon. It will give you loads of different options on what you want enabled during the meeting. If we focus on recording and transcription, you could actually enable record and transcribe automatically. So when you join the meeting, it's already on, so you don't have to forget to turn it on when you join. Now, also you'll be able to have the control of who can access the transcription afterwards as well, whether it's yourself or somebody else or other people, sorry. Under Copilot, you can manipulate whether you want Copilot to only be available after the meeting ends or during as well. But let's focus on Facilitator. So Facilitator can be toggled on now, which is before the meeting, or it can be turned on when you've joined the meeting as well. I've only showed you when a meeting has ended and you'll get like a summary of what was mentioned, but every individual gets their summary. So it's all like on an individual basis. Now, what if you want to collaborate? How is Copilot going to help you? So if we go into Facilitator and it's on, we've joined a meeting. Under chat, it's going to say Facilitator is present. And, midway through, it might mention some key points that was discussed, maybe even some open questions, some things that needs to be addressed before the meeting ends because there's been some questions that's been dropped in the meeting. Now, rather than clicking onto Copilot on the top, we click onto Notes. And when you click onto Notes, you'll see in real time Copilot note-taking whilst everybody's talking. And it could be off the back of your agenda that you added into your invite and then everybody discussing that agenda. So it's going to expand on it. But the good thing about Facilitator is and everybody has access to this. So as long as you turn Facilitator on, if there's 10 people on call, 10 people can see all of that note taking. So you can stay aligned when the meeting ends as well. And you're not just going to see Copilot note taking, you will be able to delete and add information if you want to elaborate on a certain point as well. So really, really good point if you're like project planning together, etc. Turn Facilitator on. One of my favorite features is follow. So I'm not usually sitting at my desk. I do webinars, but I also do like in-person events and things like that. So I'm not always, I'm usually on the go, which is why this is my favorite feature, because I can't always attend meetings. Some meetings that might clash with each other. I might be on annual leave. I click onto follow. So rather than decline, follow means anybody that's attending that meeting will see that my Copilot has attended the meeting rather than myself. And Copilot is going to say that I'm not available. Can you turn transcription on? So one of my colleagues would turn transcription on and the whole summary would be added back into my calendar. So it's almost like a nudge to your colleagues to turn transcription on if you can't make the meeting, so you can catch up in your own time. Okay, so we have a follow button. Right, let's move on to Excel. So disclaimer, I'm not an Excel expert, but I've done my best to create some demos for you. So we've got bakery goods on the left-hand side. We've got revenue of November and December, profit we've made, etc. Okay, now if you do use Excel often, you may want to turn your spreadsheet into a table format, because Copilot works better if it's in a table format. So highlight the cells that you want, then hover over format as a table in the ribbon at the top, and then just choose the color scheme that you want. Okay, otherwise Copilot might miss out some numerical values and you don't want that. So when you've got it into a table format and it's saved, you can click onto Copilot on the top right hand side, and it gives you a couple of suggested prompts. I'm going to click onto one. I'm going to click on to create formulas, and Copilot is going to suggest a formula that I've not actually thought about that I can include in my table. So it's going to come back and suggest revenue growth. So the differences between November and December revenue, it gives you the formula. So if you want to learn, you can. I don't want to learn because, as I said, I'm not an Excel expert, so I don't really want to learn the formula. However, you've got a pre-window at the bottom, and it's going to show you how it's going to look. So you can either hover over insert column to see how it looks and then click onto it, and it would embed it within your table. Okay, so as easy as that. Now, if I fast forward this and I ask Copilot to put it into pound format, I'm typing my prompt in just natural human language. It's nothing, Excel savvy, and Copilot still understands that I want it in pound format. So when I click on insert column, that's exactly what I got. Okay. Now, let me show you some conditional formatting. Some of you on call might do conditional formatting on a daily basis. Now, you can get Copilot to do that for you. For those of you that don't know what conditional formatting is, it's basically highlighting certain rows or even cells if it meets a certain condition, basically. So I'm saying, Copilot, can you highlight the bakery goods of profit less than £1,000? Now, again, it's going to come back with the formula. It's going to say it's going to highlight it in red, but that's because in my prompt I mentioned, can you highlight it in red? So when you click on apply, it's as easy as that. So it's highlighted it in red. Now, if I, again, fast forward it and I ask Copilot the exact same thing, but highlight it in green for profit over £3,500. So when we click on apply, we can see there's a lot more bakery goods that are doing well in this bakery, which is good. Now, rather than just highlighting cells in certain colors, you could even add icons. So I'm asking Copilot to add me some arrow icons. So you can see under column I, profit percentage, I want arrow icons. So any arrow that is pointing downwards need to represent profit of under 40%. Okay, so traffic cone system arrows, click on apply, and as you can see, it's embedded icons against one column. Okay, so that's really good. So you can add icons now. Now let's move back to revenue growth. And as you can see, there's a lot more minus figures. There's a lot of minus figures going on in revenue growth, which means it's dropping in revenues between both months, and that's not good. So what I'm going to ask Copilot now is, again, create me another column and state red, amber, green. Red is anything in the minus figures. Green is anything over £1,000. And yes, it seems like it's a bit obscure that I'm asking Copilot to expand my table so large. Am I going to do that in real life? Maybe not, but I'm just trying to show you as much as I can in one demo. And as you can see, it's done that. But this is also really important. You do not want Copilot to get confused. So if you ever feel like you need to change the topic with Copilot, you just need to refresh the chat history. And I haven't done that. I just typed in, fill the cells with colours. I didn't mention what cells. I didn't even mention what colours. And when I click on apply, Copilot has understood based on my previous conversation, so I don't have to repeat myself. I just need to carry on that conversation, okay? Just like when you're talking to a colleague, and it's highlighted it in the right column. So as you can see, anything highlighted in red is in the minus figures. Now, if anybody needs like graphs, basically visual representations, you can do this. So I'm typing in, show some data insights. Yes, you could say, Copilot, can you create me a graph against these two columns? You could do that. But if you just want some general graphs, then do what I'm doing. Show some data insights. Copilot will come back and talk about, again, revenue growth. There's a lot of bakery goods that are not moving between both months, are sitting in the amber. Now, you can choose to keep that if you want to, but I want to go further. So if you scroll down, it will give you a little bit of a blurb of what's going on. But the most important thing is if you click onto the bottom thing, add all insights to another sheet. It will create another sheet, and it will basically add all of the graphs, all of the visual representations. Maybe there's only one trend that you've thought about, and Copilot has demonstrated several ones, and it has even complemented it with pivot tables as well. So this is more for moderate, basic to moderate use. Whereas if you want to go a little bit further, do this. So type in, create me a dashboard using Python. Python is advanced coding, okay? So you don't need to be a coder, you just need to mention it. And Copilot is going to say, do you want to start advanced analysis? Click onto that. It will create you another sheet. It will extract everything from your main table. And on the right-hand side, it's going to perform that coding that I can't do, but Copilot can do. And it's going to create me basically a dashboard, so like a mini business intelligence dashboard, and I'll show you why it's different to the other ones, okay, the other graphs that I've showed you. So let's expand on it because it is very small. So let's expand on it so you can see it a bit more clearly. So perfect. So now you can see revenue growth, profit percentage, or correlation between expenses and profit, etc. Now these are images. You cannot change them like the other ones. So you can't change the axes because I've asked for a dashboard, which means if you have a table that's constantly being modified, maybe by different users, let's say we go back into our table and we change quantity sold to 50,000 units. This is a very, very good bakery here. If we go back into our dashboard, in a second, you're going to see in real time, it has updated itself. So if you've got a table, a master spreadsheet that's constantly being modified, create a dashboard literally within seconds using Python with Copilot. Okay, so that's enough of Excel. Obviously, you can do so much more, but this isn't just an Excel demo. This is obviously the art of the possible. So let's try and move on to the rest of the demos. So let's talk about PowerPoint. So obviously, some of you might shy away from it. You do no longer have to. I've clicked onto the Copilot button. And I'm asking Copilot, can you create me a presentation? What I'm going to do is basically get Copilot to transform a Word document into a presentation for me in one prompt. Okay, so I'm saying my company who's looking for new clients, basically we need to recruit new clients. How are we going to attract them with our business? Let's talk about our business further in a presentation. So I'm going to attach a Word document using the / I'll start typing in the name and it should come up. There we go. Welcome to Copilot Recruit. That's my Word document. It's only about, I think, 1,000 words, but it can be larger if you want to. You can also attach up to 5 other documents. So it can collate it together. And Copilot has basically created me a framework before creating their presentation. So if you want to change the flow or even delete areas that you feel like is not relevant for a presentation, you can do that then. And then you can click on generate slides and let Copilot do its thing and create me a presentation. Top tip is if you only want 5 slides, please mention that in your first prompt. And Copilot will follow those instructions. Otherwise, Copilot is just going to assume you may want whatever it creates for you. So just be specific in your first prompt. And Copilot is going to create you images that are AI generated or stock images. As you can see, whilst I'm speaking, it's already created me a presentation, 21 slides. So let's say I chose to keep it and I want to put it onto presentation mode so you can see it a bit more clearly. But I haven't fast forwarded this. It's obviously in real time. Copilot's created this for me. It's added animations to some of the fonts. So it's added a cover slide. It's added an agenda and even dividers. So when you're changing the topic, obviously it comes across a bit more professional when you're changing the topic. And even the images are placed in different slides and different sizes, etc. So it's not so repetitive. And it even works with existing slides as well. So let's say, for example, like maybe you didn't like a certain slide. If I just it gives you it gives you speaker notes as well, so just to verify where you got the information from. Now let's say, for example, if we go back to slide 10, you didn't really like how the words were positioned. You have a couple of options. I'm just clicking on make it professional, and it's basically going to make it a bit more condensed and concise for me. Okay, so that's, if you want to further manipulate your existing slide, then click onto the top right hand side Copilot and ask more questions or commands, and it will be able to perform that for you. A common question that I get is, does it work with my company branded templates? Yes, it does. So you will see another box at the bottom and it says change design. So you can choose your company templates if you want to, or maybe some generic ones that Microsoft has created. Let's click onto the orange experience. So if you click onto the orange experience and I ask Copilot to generate me slides off the back of a Teams transcript, I said I only want 5 slides. Just bear in mind it might not pick up the intro slide, so technically it might be 6. Just bear that in mind. I have fast forwarded this because obviously you get the idea of how to create presentations now. And in a second you will see it has abided by those templates, so the same fonts, the same kind of color schemes, etc. Okay, so it can use your own company branded templates as well. Right, we're coming to an end of our demos. So let's say, for example, when you open up your Outlook, you have Copilot, but it can only access your emails. When you open up your Excel, it can access your Excel spreadsheets. But what if you wanted Copilot to access a SharePoint site, a couple of meetings that you've had that is quite relevant to files that are saved in the SharePoint site, maybe a conversation that you've been having with somebody on Teams chat? You go to your Copilot chat, okay? I would say this is probably one of the main areas you'll be going to if you do have Copilot, and you can access it in many different areas. My favorite area to access it is if you type in office.com, or if you go onto your Teams or your Outlook, you can access it there as well, okay? Essentially, it looks like this. You get a work and a web toggle. Work is your internal information. Web is internet searches, okay? Now, if you scroll down or click on see more, at the very bottom, there's something called prompt gallery. If you click onto that, it will give you a library of prompts. So anybody that needs to get some inspiration, choose the department that you work in, choose the industry that you work in, and it will filter through the types of prompts you can use, and you can even save them in your own library. So when you click onto it, it pre-populates into the prompt box. So you don't actually need to remember very lengthy prompts or save it somewhere else. Now I've deleted that and asked Copilot my own prompt. I've said, Copilot, can you have a look at my emails, my Teams meetings and my Teams chats over the past 2 weeks and tell me the things that I haven't done. So the things that needs my urgent attention in a table format. And I would say that's a rinse and repeat prompt. So when I click onto the clock, it would say, do you want to schedule the prompt? And I'm going to say yes. So I want Copilot to run this prompt on its own at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday, up to 15 times, which means when I open up my laptop on a Monday morning, I can just join a Teams meeting and the prompt has already been ran for me by Copilot. So you can schedule up to 10 prompts in one go. So you can say, Copilot, have a look at my emails. Copilot, have a look at my Teams meetings over the past week and collate my follow-ups. And you can click onto the ellipses, schedule prompts, and all of them will be there. So you can stop it running whenever you like, okay? So this is really good to stop those repetitive prompts and just get Copilot to schedule them for you. Okay, so that's how you can schedule prompts. I know there probably have been some people on this webinar that have been writing some notes as I go along, which is fine. You can carry on doing that. How is Copilot going to help you with your note taking by hand? Take a picture of it. So yes, I am exposing my handwriting to the whole world. That is my handwriting. I have uploaded it onto my Copilot chat and I've typed in, can you rewrite this please? And Copilot has transformed my handwriting into text format so everybody can understand it. Now you can add a bit more framework, actually a bit more context. So you can say, Copilot, I've had a webinar today all around Copilot, and Angela's delivered how it works within applications. These are my notes. Make this make sense. And Copilot won't only just do a copy and paste job, it would also add structure behind it, so because it understands why you've written that in the first place. Okay, so add more context, you'll get more out of it. bonus is you can get Copilot to actually create you images. So create images, create posters, infographics, videos, etc. So let's say, for example, I want to do a pre-built one. So the one that says learn, I like that look of that one. It gives me the prompt of how Copilot has created it, and I can change it. So I'm going to say, change the word learn to Copilot. You can change the entire prompt if you want to. You can change the style further, or even add your own company branded colors. Change the size, so you have different variations. Now, when you click on create, I have fast forwarded this one because I don't want you just staring at a screen. It does take about 2 minutes for it to create, but this is how it looks. It's basically like watching a cake bake. So slowly it's going to create the image. And as you can see, it has given that, it's got that inspiration from the image that I've picked, but it's changed the word to Copilot as well. And you can further edit it on the right hand side and just say, change the background to pink, for example, add this image, and it's going to do that further as well. Okay, so you can create images with Copilot. A new feature is something called voice. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear this through the webinar, but basically it's like having a conversation with Copilot. Not only can you speak to Copilot and it's speech to text on your phone, and coming soon onto a desktop version is you will be able to have a conversation with Copilot. So I had one today. I said, Copilot, what is my diary looking like today? So I've got a couple of webinars to do today, for example, and a couple of training sessions, and that's what it's told me my day is looking like. So it can talk back to you, and you can even interrupt it. Once you get your answer, you can interrupt it and just ask it another question, and it would stop talking. So yeah, very intelligent and very new feature. So very excited about that one. Let's move on to agents. Okay, so I've showed you the demos. I've showed you the art of the possible. If let's say you have adopted Copilot and you want to go one step further, you want to get more efficient. And this is where you start to create agents. And agents is something a bit more role specific. So for example, a HR department are probably referring to policy documents that are pages and pages long, maybe a SharePoint site just for HR. You can create an agent, which is basically your own Copilot, and plug in those documents in the SharePoint site. So when you're only speaking to that specific agent, name it whatever you like, HR advisor, and you're speaking to it through Teams, like you're talking to a colleague, and you're asking it questions, it's not going to deviate into your emails or another SharePoint site just because you mentioned a keyword and it's deposited in an email somewhere. It's only looking at the resources that you've plugged in and nothing else. Okay, so it gets rid of the noise, and it only looks at certain specific resources specific to an organization or a job role. Okay, so agents is definitely the next step after your productivity gains in application use. Right. Hopefully you're all still with me, and let's say we are all excited on call and we're all excited to get on board and have Copilot. I'm just going to give you a flavor of adoption, okay? Something to take away. This isn't the be all and end all. This is just something that I've added onto the webinar just for you to think about if you have Copilot already or you're thinking of adopting it. And it's prompting, okay? I've mentioned prompting a lot, and this is a good key takeaway. GCSE. I'm not bringing you back to school. GCSE stands for goal, context, source, and expectation. This should be included within your prompt, okay? I'll break it down. Goal, tell Copilot what you want. I want 3 to 5 bullet points. Context, tell Copilot why. Well, I'm trying to prepare for a meeting with client X to discuss their phase 3 brand campaign. Source, tell Copilot where to look. Emails, Teams chats since June. And then expectation. Yes, you're going to get 3 to 5 bullet points, but who are they for? Are they for yourself? Are they for a colleague? Is it for a client? Because the language would be slightly different. So mention that. So please use simple language so I can get up to speed quickly. It doesn't have to be in every single prompt. It could be maybe when you want Copilot to create you something, and it doesn't even need to be in this order. It's just a good starting point so you don't get frustrated with Copilot saying, actually, I didn't want it that lengthy. I want it shorter. Just mention it in your first prompt, which I'm pretty sure I've mentioned in my demos as well. There is a lot of promotions that are running at the moment, so a very good time to join this webinar because you could take advantage of these promotions. So please reach out to your account manager and they will be happy to see what you're eligible for and whether there's certain requirements, etc. But hopefully you should be eligible for at least 15% off, all the way up to 35% off Copilot licensing. Now, let's say, what next? You've showed me so much, Angela. What do I do with all of this? Please reach out to Digital Origin, your account manager, and please request for a Copilot readiness assessment just to see, is your environment ready to take on Copilot? You know, as I mentioned, anything that you have access to, Copilot has access to. So we need to make sure that your permission levels are set properly. You know, certain SharePoint sites are not open to everyone in the organization when it should only be open to legal, for example. So that's what the assessment will look at to make sure that you are fully ready to roll out Copilot to certain users or the entire organization. So please reach out to them. Right, I think we've got a couple of minutes to spare, which is good. So Keith, I'm wondering, has there been any questions that's been dropped in the Q&A? If there hasn't, please ask some questions. I'll be happy to answer it before the end of the webinar.
Thanks, Angela. Yes, there certainly are some questions.
Yes.
We've got a few questions from, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, Mir. I'm going to read them out, Angela.
Okay.
Does Copilot in Microsoft 365 apps feed into the LLM? If it does, can Copilot be disabled so it's not available to all staff?
Yes, so Copilot can be disabled. So when you say disabled, there's a free version of Copilot and then there's a paid version of Copilot. What I've gone through today is the paid version of Copilot. The free version cannot go into your graph that I mentioned, cannot look into your internal data like SharePoint sites, etc. And it cannot create complex agents that I've mentioned either. So if you're talking about the free Copilot, yes, you can disable it. Whether it's for an individual perspective, I'm pretty sure it's either on or off for the entire organization. So that's something that we'll need to address. It doesn't train the LLM because that was one of the questions that you asked as well. So does Copilot feed the LLM? No, it doesn't. The large language model has already been trained on public books, articles, websites, etc. And it's constantly going to become more intelligent based on readily available information. It's not going to be trained on your data in order for it to become more intelligent. Okay.
Right. The next question was around how can the user differentiate between whether the information that is being requested or the prompt is going to the public internet or whether it's using the internal information in the tenant. Is there a way of differentiating what you're asking for and where it's going for the data?
So when you have the license that I've just mentioned today, you can toggle off web browsing, which means it's only going to be looking at your internal data. If you want web browsing on at the same time as looking into your internal data, you will have to look at the references. So when Copilot comes back, there'll be citations. And yes, Copilot isn't always going to get it right, 100% right, all the time. So you are the human, you need to obviously verify. So please look at the citations and you'll be able to see if it's a URL or if it's like a SharePoint site or a document that's been saved on your OneDrive, etc. So the citations are definitely going to help you pinpoint where Copilot has got their information from.
Right. The next question is particularly referencing Excel. Are there any data limits as to what Copilot can process in terms of the amount of data?
So there's different functionalities within Excel. So there's a new formula, which is actually equals Copilot, and it can only look at the first 100 rows. I presume because it's a new feature, it will start to look at more. But normal like features that I've mentioned today in my demos, it can look up to 90,000 rows. So it's quite hefty data sets as well. Now, if you have raw data sets and you feel like, it needs a lot of tidying up, I want to compare two spreadsheets with each other and you haven't showed me this today, does that mean Copilot can't do it? Copilot can do it. It's just through an agent called, I mentioned agents very, very lightly, but there are ready-made agents called Analyst. And Analyst is basically a more advanced version of Copilot in Excel. So you can dump data sets, PDFs, and it will create your financial report, maybe even create you another spreadsheet combining two spreadsheets together, etc. So there's a lot more functionality. But yes, the limitations, just to address your question again, there are different limitations based on what functionality you want Copilot to perform.
Right, thanks. The next question is around sensitive data. I know we've covered a little bit of that off, but it might just be worth reiterating around how that permissions works and the importance of having that set up correctly prior to deployment.
Yes. So obviously we don't want to open up a can of worms. Okay. So let's say, for example, I didn't know I had access to all SharePoint sites. And then the company has given me Copilot. All of a sudden I'm asking Copilot questions, very innocent, business questions. And Copilot is then bringing information from SharePoint sites that I didn't even know I had access to. And it could be very sensitive information that I shouldn't even have eyes on. So that's why I mean that we need to make sure that permissions are set properly to not open up a can of worms, and make sure that certain access controls are implemented to make sure that classified data stays within certain individuals and not everyone.
And then the next question is, can speech to text translate if the person talking to Copilot speaks a language which is not English?
You should be able to default it. I think it's up to 29 different languages, so you should be able to, yes. But I'll double check on the speech to text actually, because it's supposed to be prompting. Prompting can work. So yes, I'm not 100% sure actually. We'll have to find out.
We'll follow up with everyone on that one. The next question is, can you give an example about how Copilot can take minutes from team meetings? I think we covered this.
Yes. So you turn transcription on either when you've set up the meeting. The meeting has to be set up by yourself, or a colleague would have set it up. Because I'm external, if I sent you an invite, your Copilot is not going to work. Okay. So make sure the meeting has been set up by yourself, or one of your colleagues has set it up. You turn transcription on. Transcription is just normal transcription. And then when the meeting ends, you get your summary, you get your minutes basically. There is a new feature that I haven't added in my demo because it's rolling out soon, and you'll be able to create a custom template of how you want the minutes to look. So what kind of key takeaways do you want included in your minutes, etc., as opposed to just have a general static summary. So when the meeting ends, your summary will be deposited into your Teams chat or your calendar.
I've got a question. There are a couple more questions, but I've got a question that I think will benefit everybody who's on the webinar. Have you got maybe one or two examples about where you've seen a business deploy Copilot and you've been kind of really impressed with just kind of what that's done for the business in terms of it's been quite transformational in terms of, I don't know, whether it's an application they've used or they've saved time and effort and duplication of data that you could perhaps share with everybody?
Yes, so I mean, there's quite a few of them. Every customer is slightly different. There's one that really stands out, and they basically implemented Copilot, not to the whole organization. They had about 30 licensing, and they gave those licenses to different departments, and they've actually chose them as like champions of the organization. So like the ones that are really going to drive that AI behavior and showcase that to the rest of their team to show that this is how we're going to stay productive on it. And after 6 weeks, they came back with a business use case of how it works within their departments. So how it would work with marketing, etc. Very similar to the demos that I've showed you on how their productivity gains. So whether it's recruitment, recruitment is really, really important. A lot of people are doing like hiring and interviewing internally now, which means you're constantly getting CVs come through on a website or your emails, and Copilot agents has helped sift through those CVs and do job descriptions and see which ones match the best, rather than you having to do that manual assessment yourself. So which ones do you need to shortlist and why, etc. So yeah, recruitment is one of the key areas as well. I would say those organizations that are a lot more forward thinking are not just doing it for minutes and not just sifting through their emails. They're really creating agents, and that's the next step. And thinking about how are they going to change their business processes with agents. So whether it's sieving through tenders, whether it's kind of like a business procedure guidance, for example, to get rid of those troubleshooting, and rather than probing a specialist, they're probing the agent. So I know that's like a lot that I've just mentioned, but hopefully somebody has taken something from the examples that I've given.
Yeah, that was good. And one more question at the moment
Yes.
we've got in the Q&A is, where are limitations in Copilot documented so we can ensure we work within those limits?
When you say limits, do you mean size limits, or as in like where it's stored?
See whether Mira answers that question in the chat.
Well,
But I
I'll
think
try and
it's
address
related.
both of them anyway. So storage, it needs to be stored in SharePoint, your OneDrive, not your personal OneDrive, your OneDrive for Business, and your emails and your Teams messages. If it's not stored there, then it's limited. If your data is stored externally, then you'll probably have to speak to your account manager to see what does that look like. Will you need to migrate that data to Microsoft in order for Copilot to access it? When it comes to size limits, again, every application is slightly different. It's usually each document is about, I think it's 20 megabytes, but then when it comes to agents, it could be 512 megabytes up to 500 files. So yeah, different limitations. I think when if you're looking to roll out Copilot and you have specific use cases already, then we can provide you a lot more granular information in terms of that limitation and what to expect.
Perfect, thanks. And then just we've had another question about what licenses are required, probably just so that everybody's really clear between the free version and the paid version of Copilot. Perhaps just reiterate if you could.
So the free version is accessible to all anyway. So as long as you have a Microsoft Office account, you just log in with your work credentials and you should have access to the free version. The paid version, I mean, to be fair, I would say everybody is eligible for Copilot these days, don't you think, Keith? Like before, maybe like only three or four users within certain licensing were eligible, whereas now, you can be on quite on a lower license and still be eligible for Copilot. It will just be more limited because if you only got Exchange Online Plan 1, you only have access to your inbox and nothing else. So just bear that in mind. And obviously security as well. We need to make sure that your security is intact before giving Copilot to you. So please reach out to your account managers and they'll give you that further conversation and reassurance of what that's going to look like, basically.
Perfect. Thank you. If there are any questions that we've not covered, we're almost out of time. Please feel